thanks for letting us pick your brain this afternoon. Take some time aside here at the Federation Show. Wanted just to sit down and talk to you about how you got started in this whole leather world, into making saddles, which I saw you had the beautiful saddle in the competition, which I got to go over with the fine-tooth comb. It was very emasculating and very amazing saddle that
Thank
you
you.
built. So really want to understand how'd you get started into this? What got you to where you are?
Well, I got started, as most everybody does, with the Tandy starter kit, and I was 8 years old. It was a Christmas gift. And I had an uncle sit down with me for about an hour to show me how to use the basic 7 stamps in there. And that's the only training I ever had until probably 2 years ago when, with the advent of social media, bringing, the leather world a lot closer, I was able to reach out to people that, I liked, and they were willing to help me out. But, as a kid, I had an hour with an uncle that really wasn't as polished as I thought he was at the time, show me. But from then, I was hooked. I grew up around horses and animals, and, we had saddles and headstalls and tack and everything. My grandpa always had really, really nice gear and accessories around the house, and I was just always fascinated with it. And there was a saddle shop in town, and at that time we lived in town, so I could ride my bike down to the saddle shop and kind of peek through the windows and see what was going on. And I just always admired that type of work. Well, as you're growing up, you get busy with school and stuff, and you kind of lose touch with stuff like that for a while. But I got out of high school and was on a music scholarship, playing a saxophone in a jazz band, believe it or not. And I got married and had kids right away, and I kind of kept out of it until I was probably about 21, 22 years old, maybe a little older than that, when I got back into it again. And from then, it's been a very vigorous hobby for me that's grown into a very, very good business. I was always, as a young adult, and most of you out there, if you're older than me, you're going to say I'm young still. But when I was the age that my boys are now, I spent a lot of time horseback, riding colts. I rodeoed for a long time. And I built my own gear, repaired my own stuff. And that really is what drove me into getting into it again. That, and with a nagging wife at the time, it was a way to escape that and have some therapy, if you would, and be able to be creative and actually make some money, being your own therapist. It was a really good deal. I built my first saddle on my own with the help of the Al Stolman saddle encyclopedias, which were great references and a great place to start if you could understand what he was saying. And at that stage, nobody that's never done any of it will understand what it is. So I paid basically to build 2 saddles in my first saddle because I just wasn't happy, and I would peel it apart and start over basically until I just ran out of resources to do it again. So I just was stuck with it. I haven't got to build a whole lot of saddles in the last 15 years or so. I've built 34. My 34th saddle was in the contest this year. I did get a ribbon on it, which is pretty cool. But
Beautiful piece.
Thank you. I've been in business for myself full time now for 5 years. And that's when I really have noticed the big change and the biggest evolution in my work. I always was a decent tooler, but I couldn't draw to save my life. I was guilty, like everybody is, copying stuff, and I just didn't feel good about it. And with the help of great guys like Bob Park, put out a great book on how to draw Western floral designs. The light just turned on for me, and it's just kind of taken off since then. But there are a couple of guys that I really, really look up to. Both of them are saddle makers. In my opinion, both of them are master saddle makers, if not grandmasters at the craft. And just a little over a year ago, I moved from southern Arizona to Weatherford, Texas, in two parts. One, our kids were grown and we wanted to change. We wanted to get out of the desert and come into country that had some color and some trees and different seasons. It's been a really good deal. But at the same time, I moved into an area that had a lot of those guys real close to me, and they were willing to help me out. And one of those guys is Terry Henson. He lives actually 25 minutes from me now, so I get to frequent his shop a lot. And he's really, really brought my saddle making around. You know, until you've built 20 or 30 of them, you really aren't consistent with it. Well, he's really helped take that learning curve for me and transform it within a year to, you know, leaps and bounds. I'm just so grateful for what he's done for me. Great guy, awesome saddle maker, very efficient, and very likable and approachable. Another guy that I really look up to and has been mentoring me more on the mental side of things and on finishing side of things as well is Keith Seidel from Cody, Wyoming. I actually got to spend some time on the phone with him a couple days ago, and we weren't talking saddles, we were still talking belts and strap goods. But what a great reference and resource and a wealth of knowledge. I'm just thankful that he had the time for me. But I think when you reach a certain level, guys at the top echelon in the business have more appreciation for what you're doing and think, okay, my time is worth spending some time with this young guy to help him out, because that's where this industry is going, and these are the guys that are going to be the front runners in the future. So, I really appreciate both of those guys for their help, whether it's for construction or finish or even just business information. They have helped me more than I can ever acknowledge, and I appreciate that. Thank you guys very much. I'm living a dream, basically. Some people would probably wake up in that dream and think maybe it was a nightmare, because being your own boss and having a self-based business, it's not easy. You've got to work, and you got to work hard, and you got to work a lot of hours. And if it wasn't for my love of what I do, I don't think I could be in business. We have to compete with other makers that are businesses also, but we also have to compete with all the hobbyists out there that practically give things away because it's not a source of income for them, and they don't understand that they're really driving the market in through the ground, and it's a sad thing. And I wish they would wake up and see what they're doing to the industry as a whole. I know there's a lot more people now getting into leather work than there were, even 5 or 10 years ago, and it's cool to see that. But we need to keep things in place on where they are, and if you're doing great work, you need to be asking great prices for it, so our industry can grow and thrive and not kill the good guys in it.
That's a topic that comes up a lot on like the online forums, is how do I price this? What's my stuff worth?
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the challenges today, and especially one of the benefits that we have. And you hear it a lot from some of the older guys,
mm-hmm.
and I think you've even touched on a little bit too, is that we have this wealth of knowledge at our fingertips, and so there's so many more people that are kind of getting into this and want to learn. But to your point, that's also, it's kind of a double-edged sword,
mm-hmm.
to where, what do you do with it now that you have it, and how do you nurture all of these people and kind of keep this industry growing? And there's a lot of people that want to follow in your footsteps and turn this into a business and all that. So what's kind of what was the hardest part to make that transition from doing this on the side, like so many people do, to making this your livelihood?
Well, you've got to be able to make it to where the business is self-sufficient. Okay, and the only way to do that is to really break it down and understand what you need to price things at to be able to make a profit. Most hobbyists don't know how to make a profit. They just want to get their material costs back so they can go buy some more stuff. Well, most of the time that doesn't even happen, and they end up digging into their paycheck from their other job to go buy their leather. Well, as soon as that happens, you've already created a failing business model for your hobby. If you want it to become a business, it needs to be worked as a business, not as a hobby. The biggest issue that we find out, again, is people, well, what is my stuff worth? Well, that's for you to decide, but you've got to take into consideration all your overhead costs, all your hard costs. Labor is not profit. Labor is a cost into that product. Okay, you factor all that in, your materials, your labor, all your overhead costs, and you have a figure that you have to meet to be able to make that work. Now that you've come up with this figure, you've still got to add a profit on top of that. Otherwise, we don't have the ability to put money in the bank to save for a rainy day or to put into retirement or anything like that. So if you're doing it just to make your money back, you're already losing money and you will go broke doing it. And there are a lot of people that get into it and realize, I'm not making any money, I'm going broke, and then they get out. And if everybody that's starting out will understand, hey, okay, until I'm good enough to be able to make a lot of money doing this, I need to price it accordingly, but I can't be undercutting everything because, one, you're going out of business, you're going broke. Two, you're conditioning the consumer that they can buy products at a below basement price. And when you do this work by hand, you're not competing with the big box stores that have it made overseas. You're not competing with the people in third world countries that get paid $1 or $2 a day to work 10 or 12 hours a day to produce things. It's just not like that. It's not realistic. So you can't expect that same model to work for you because it just won't. Be bold. Don't be afraid, and don't give in. Stick to your guns. I know a lot of guys that do great work and they're afraid that they won't sell anything because the people they think they're selling to can't afford it. Those aren't the people you're after. Okay? You know, if you need to build something at a certain price point because you think they need to do it, it needs to be made accordingly to be able to be sold at that price to be at a profit level as well. So, you know, you've got to figure that out. Obviously, a beginner is not going to get the same amount of money I'm going to get for a belt that they would get. I'm probably going to make more money on my belt, one, because I can make it faster and I'll be more efficient, so I'll be more profitable than they will. But at the same time, they're learning that skill, and it is a specialized skill, just like, you know, calling the plumber to come to the house for an emergency with the plumbing. You're going to pay a premium. Taking your car into the auto shop, you're paying those mechanics a premium for their specialized skill. So why not ask for a specialized price for your specialized skill as well? That's how I see it. That's the only way I see anybody be able to make any money doing this the right way. You know? So that's my thoughts on that.
So as far